Welcome back to another episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. We're your hosts, Bryan, Andrew, and Tyler, the go-to crew for all things running, cycling, and triathlon. This is episode 38. We've cooked up something nice for you today. We're tackling a frosty challenge, how to make the most out of your winter training block. If you've ever thought of running in sub-zero temperature or battling the icy winds and it's just made you reconsider your own life, well, this episode's got your back.
I'm stoked to dive into this one this week because let's be honest, winter training can either be where dreams go to die or where PRs are born. And I know that's what we all hope for, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So whether you're training for a spring race or just trying to keep that engine warm and purring, mastering the cold grind is an essential skill in the tool belt.
I know you've been bugging to tell us about this story, Andrew, so we're going to kick things off with a nice epic threshold workout story from none other than Andy Mann himself. Before I let you dive into that, I'm going to just give us a nice little BIM news flash. We got the 5K coming up, April 19th. It's live on boysinmotion.com. We got to get those signups. We got to get a nice attendance out there, bigger and brighter than last time. I think it'll be a nice early spring BIM 5K. I can't wait to see how many people are out there and crushing it. We did change locations. We're spicing it back up to our original location, Merritt Island in Welland. So should be really nice.
Yeah, so that's the call out to anybody who's going to be in Niagara on the Easter long weekend. The race is happening. Be there, be square.
All right, now it is time for story time. Let's jump into a recent winter workout that I did. This past Saturday, I did a lactate threshold 9-mile run with 4 of those miles being at half marathon pace. And let me tell you, the conditions were interesting. Generally, I love to do my lactate threshold sessions on a track. I have a local track I will go to and I just do loops. It's perfect. The issue is in winter, that track is not maintained. And we've been getting a ton of snow here in Toronto. So and you can see on my run, if you go on Strava, I go to the track, I tried to check it out. There was a few feet of snow. So then I was plan B. I have to find a nice loop, a nice quiet loop, because that's the issue in Toronto is with all the stoplights. I don't want to be stopping at lactate threshold. So I went and found a neighborhood loop to do this workout at. I found something, I went about a mile away. I found something that was half decent. I scoped it out. I did the loop first. And I said, okay, this is not bad. The one issue, and I knew this was going to be the case, is that there's still cars. So I knew I was going to have to be doing sidewalk to street hopping. So I knew that was going to be the case. Because of street parking, there's cars, snow lined up, water puddles, slush. So I knew that was going to be an element. So it made for a very interesting loop. And let me tell you, it was an interesting workout.
So is this a narrow road too? Like, what are you thinking for the? Is it two-way traffic, one-way traffic? What are you thinking?
It is two-way traffic, but because of the winter, basically if 2 cars come down and with street parking and because a lot of the street parking cars, they will be there and then some of them haven't been dug out yet. So if 2 cars start coming down, it's one of those, someone needs to pull to the side and come in. Like there's almost not even enough for like a car and if I'm running on the street.
That's wild.
So going in,
I can't believe that even at this point after the storm, that stuff is still not completely dug out. That's crazy. That makes it so tough to do city running in the winter.
Especially at pace, yeah.
Oh yeah. And so yeah, track was gone. For my marathon pace workouts, I either go to the water or I go to High Park and they have a closed off loop that's generally pretty good. But the issue, and this is kind of a personal thing, is I don't like having to like commute or like go somewhere to start running. I always want to leave from my door. So for a lactate threshold workout, I don't have enough distance to get there, do the workout, and then come back without overshooting it like crazy. So this is the decision I made, and I think it had quite an interesting outcome. Before I jump into the workout, I'll jump into a little bit of data to some data for the nerds, just to set the stage. My previous half marathon PR is around 116 mid, which translates to 5 minute and 50 seconds minute per mile average.
Wow, that's insanely fast. I'm still always blown away when you throw those paces out because, yeah, 5 minutes and 50, it sounds fast for miles, but for all the Canadians in the room, what that is in kilometers per hour is like 337 for 21K. Just absolutely insane pace.
I literally can't even do that for 1K. So
The paces are daunting, but I do actually have a previous workout when I first attempted to start this training block where I did the same 4 miles at threshold pace, and I was actually able to hold a 5:48 per mile workout average. So I had that as a benchmark, and generally I find early workouts I'm off my paces by about 5 to 10 seconds. So I was pretty pleased by this one. But then fast forward to this past weekend with less than ideal winter conditions, and I'm just pulling it up here. My average is a 5:57 minute per mile workout average. So almost 10 seconds slower per mile, and there was some that were just slower than 6 minutes.
that's crazy. And I see here, obviously, I have the loop pulled up. Like you were going in circles here. So like, what are you getting? Like wind thrashing at every angle on every turn. Like this seems like it wasn't letting up.
Yeah, I mean, the there wasn't too much wind, but the loop was kind of one stretch was slightly uphill, kind of a gradual climb. And at the end of that climb, there was a decent down, and then it kind of leveled up and then back up. So there was some elevation, which made it less than ideal. But the slush, water, and cars made it absolutely awful. I know at the most south point, that turn, it was like that was a kind of like busy side street, I would say. So making that turn, I would be on the road, and then I would have to hop onto the sidewalk. So I would do like an actual leap in I had a pair of Under Armour super shoes on. I would leap onto the sidewalk, and then I'd try to get back onto the road because the sidewalk was super slippery and I'm just Scooby Dooing all over the place. And then and it
Oh
was only
my
about
god.
meters, but I was just bouncing on and off the sidewalks.
I think literally anybody right now who is trying to run even slowly out in the winter is experiencing similar chaos. It's like slippery fast, and especially sidewalks where you have the like snowbank between the road and you. It's just like you're running in a canyon of slippery slush. I can't believe you attempted a lactate threshold workout in that.
I was gonna say I would have never even tried. That would have been my excuse. ABC you later, and I'm not doing that workout today. Or try to hit the treadmill.
Yeah, I mean, last weekend I had a marathon pace workout, but this is when we were getting hit by the massive storm, and I just completely canceled it. I went out, did my long run, did the mileage, but just nothing at pace. It was so bad that I was running like, 10, 11-minute miles just trudging through snow. But this time I was like, I got to get it in. Feel very behind in my training block. It is time. I mean, I got it done, but I am very surprised my ankles are still in one piece and intact because there was a couple that I think the most spooky part of the workout was one of my back and forths onto the curb as I landed. Like I thought I was jumping far enough and I landed right on the edge of the curb, just like shoe flat, and then my ankle rolled into onto the street. But thankfully the strong ankles held up.
I was gonna say those are some bulletproof ankles. I get a little deviation in the pavement and my ankles see.
Yeah, that's crazy. But you've been running outside all winter, so those ankles are beefed up. They know how to slip and fall around. So it seems like the ligaments and tendons are strong enough to keep you upright, which is good.
And that's a good test to it too. You just beat them up even more. You jump around. You have a little bit of fun, especially at lactate pace, and you survived. So
So Andrew, I've got to ask, this was slower than what you did at the beginning of your block, which I mean is already a success in itself that you were so fast before or like at the beginning when you started this block versus now with these conditions. Do you feel like this was a more successful attempt at this workout than your last one despite the conditions?
Certainly not more successful. The last one, I definitely felt very in control. And by the end, I was like, I think I could go for a fifth mile. But temperatures were cold, the track was clear, and I was kind of coming off a good amount of mileage in December. So I think that's what helped me at that one. And if you're seeing this workout on Strava, it says lactate threshold, but I won't lie, I felt like I was going beyond lactate threshold because of the conditions, even though I was quite a bit slower.
I have two things to say to that. Like I had a nice workout on Friday, lactate with John, in a non-busy neighborhood, fully clean. I could see the asphalt, so it was real nice. We could get to some paces that are good for me. But I had that in the back of my head, like, don't overshoot the threshold. You want to be in control. I did like, I did feel a little bit of that dip, and I was like, oh God, I'm going to be reaching for the last 2K. But I stayed within that lactate, and I tried to keep in mind what we were talking about the other week. So that is true. I was trying not to go over. But another thing I'm digging into your stats here. I see a little break of it within that 4 mile, and a dip in your heart rate. So I could see that you did slow down. Like you did 2 miles. Then what happened in between here? Well, maybe a good 5 6 minutes, and then you went back to the two.
Yeah, I saw this. It was like a whole lap off basically of that nice little course you found with
Yeah,
all these. You took one mile off, it seems.
we got the magnifying glass going with you now.
Oh, I'm glad you guys have the magnifying glass out, and I love that you spun it around on me. And yeah, I took a down mile in that workout. It was the effort and like just the effort required to one bouncing back and forth, all like checking back because I was constantly looking for cars that were about to plow me over, and then just the traction piece. The effort was so much higher that I felt it was just like smarter to just take a down mile and then try to keep consistent at the similar pace to what I was trying to aim at the beginning. And I think it was just me kind of underestimating where my threshold pace would be given the conditions on the day.
Yeah, that's true. I also seen like you literally went from 180s to the one mid 150s for your heart rate. So you obviously were like super locked and loaded during the threshold piece, and then like you said, you kind of had that little bit of the mile rest for the legs and the heart, and then you went back to heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
spinning this around, like this is not uncommon to have a threshold workout where you're actually doing like two pieces with a down kilometer, a little bit of rest, and then you do like 2 by 12, which is kind of what this worked out to be, is 2 by 12 LT workout, which is a common one. Actually, the Rascals training plan has something similar. And I gotta be honest, sometimes the two-piece threshold workout is more difficult mentally than the single threshold piece because you know you've got to do the whole thing again.
And I don't know the we're kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but I don't know what the backstory is between that because I'm looking at a 12-week half marathon training plan, and a lot of the lactates are not a one shot. They're like 18 minutes, take a 3 minutes like jog, and then another 15 or 16 minutes. I wonder what that two piece kind of does.
Well, really, like it means you can do more time at your LT2, right? If you split that off, let your body recover a bit,
True.
you can actually be at that pace, pushing for longer.
A little longer.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, this is something that I've done before. Normally, I'm not doing this in the winter because of conditions. I often do this in the summer when it's like super hot and humid, and I'm like, I want to train in hard conditions so that when it's a nice, perfect day, it feels extra easy. So I've done this before, but just generally not in the winter when normally the weather is on my side as far as the heart rate goes.
Or at least traction piece. Like you have traction. Like
Yeah.
you're skating out there.
Yeah, the traction was not good. And that's like, as I went out, I was like, track, number one option, love it. The other option is a cemetery that I was like, a cemetery loop could work, but the cemetery was closed.
And it's spooky.
Um, and it's spooky. I've never really done that either, but I was like, I feel like that will be maintained. So I was like what other options do you guys generally do for like more workout pieces? Like any recommendations?
True. For me, I usually just stick with Papa John and he figures out the route. So that's a good update, a good option there. But we usually try to pick like in Ottawa and obviously in Toronto there's a lot of bus routes, but they're usually busy. But we usually pick like a suburb with a bus route, wide shoulder usually, and usually those roads are pretty clear. And you could usually find a 2K or a mile loop that we just keep going back and forth on. That's kind of what we did on Friday. We went back and forth on the same loop. The only problem is we had to do like U-turns because we didn't want to go on that busy road, but it still ended up working. Costed you maybe 3 seconds a lap, but we're not racing out here, so it worked.
Yeah, so much talk about threshold. I feel like we got to give a shout out to episode 36, which we released not too long ago. So if you're interested in kind of like the why behind Andrew's tough, brutal session, that's definitely a good place to start. My tip when it comes to finding good trails in the winter to actually ride on is looking at those places that are maintained for bike traffic. Most cities will actually have a map that you can go to. I know here in Niagara there's like a few kind of bike highways they call them that are pretty well maintained. They'll plow them pretty soon and some of them are like well salted and maintained. So that's a great place where you can find some speed. I think the one thing that really hurts is elevation. If you're trying to do some of these threshold pieces in the winter with elevation, the slipping and sliding up and down hill is very spooky.
That is very true. Another thing that a lot of run clubs do around here is they find a very big parking lot, kind of treat that as a track. And some people have hookups with some snow plows, get a nice truck to plow it clean slate on the weekday you're about to do the run. So that's also another great idea.
Now, I've got to shout out the Ottawa crew because I've been seeing it more and more, and I actually think it was on CBC News, the guy who does the 25th hour. I'm not sure if you know his name, Tyler, but they're big into running on the canal. So I think like the canal for those in Ottawa is a great option, which I wish
True.
we had.
Yeah, no street lights there, and you could run back and forth as many times as you want, and it's kind of a cool dynamic running on the canal. They kind of have obviously the skating path, and then on the side they kind of pat it down so it's not slippery, and it's more so like a walking or a running path. So yeah, you're right, that is a good option. A big shout out to Mike O. He also does all his long runs on the canal every all winter.
Well, when we were here in Niagara, some of the BIM squad, we hopped out on the Welland Canal for the first time ever, and I saw a few other people who are busy on Strava here in Niagara were also out on the Welland Canal.
I
Now
saw
there
that
was
too.
there was like over a foot of snow on the canal while we were out there, so it wasn't optimal, but it was still fun to do a few sprints out there.
And it looks awesome.
I mean, based on that slip in those sprints, I don't know if I would recommend a canal for a lactate threshold,
That's a
though.
Scooby Doo
Maybe
moment right
maybe
there. Yeah.
maybe keep that for some steady long runs or recovery runs.
Yeah, and also have had no idea on the ice conditions. The nice thing about Ottawa is it's maintained and you know you're not going to fall through.
Very true.
So, Andrew, what would you rate that workout 1 out of 10? And if you could do it again, would you change anything about it?
I mean, overall, from, just as a workout in my block, it really wasn't, that awful. I've definitely have had worse in the summer. So maybe I'd give it like a 6 out of 10 as far as quality and kind of reassurance, which is I for me like what these sessions are in that block for, to just reassure me that I'm able to run at that pace for a good amount of time. But if I were to do it again, I mean, the issue is that the timing of when I was doing the workout, it was like that is when I could get it done. But yeah, just a little bit more planning, trying to figure out a route that worked, or maybe, going out somewhere where like I do have some good routes that I knew would have been good, but they were just a little further out. So trying to do it at a time where I could have made the trek out to those locations to try to get that workout in, I think would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, and you're right. Like it's worth having good ground beneath your feet when you have to do stuff at pace. Sometimes like long runs are actually nice to have some of that slush because you don't need to, you're not testing yourself about speed, you're testing yourself to endure. And bad conditions make enduring harder, which is kind of what you're after most of the time. But for those speed sessions, good asphalt, good pavement is always nice.
Yeah, that is true. And I guess to go on that endure rabbit hole, I seen you did a freaky run on Sunday, and I also did a little bit of enduring with John. He did have a long run. I kind of can't consider mine as a long run, but yeah, we went in some snowy, slushy conditions. I just felt like Andrew on that on his 100K. I was just doing the Andy shuffle. I actually was gonna put that as my Strava caption, but I totally forgot by the time I got home. So, but I was just shuffling in the slush. It was nice.
Yeah, yeah, and we had a great run here a few like 2 weekends ago. Myself, Kennedy, Mike, and the Rascal headed out for a long run. Kennedy and I did a 30K, and that was her first ever 30K. And I'm so impressed. She held it together all the way. We did a ton of elevation, more elevation than we'll have at around the bay. So it was a tough run. We went up the escarpment once, and then we met up after about 12K with the Rascal and Mike, and they brought us home to RPM where we had some nice treats, tasty treats and coffee. So it was well worth the tough run. But I was in shambles at the end of it, and Kennedy having that as her first ever 30K was just so impressive. She's put a good training block together, and it's paying off.
I think that'll be good in the tool belt, especially in those conditions and the cold.
Yeah, I think what Kennedy is doing super well is her consistency is just so on point that the pieces are all just falling together very nicely.
It's all about consistency, I think, and I'm just trying to stay above Gizmo. That's my consistency.
I mean, that's been quite the battle these last couple of weeks. It's been interesting to watch.
It's a good close battle.
But the one thing that and Bryan, you mentioned your body was in shambles from the workout. I think either workouts or long runs or things that just don't go perfect, and kind of like either conditions aren't great, you work through it, you have a really long, a high volume week, and then right at the end of it, you have a nice long run that just like puts your body over the edge. Kind of that's what makes it easier the next time around, is like you can kind of look back on that and be like, oh, it's not so hard this time. And then, that's how you grow and keep progressing.
Big agree.
For sure, and that's part of the value of this long-term consistency and all-season training, rather than having short, intense bursts of motivation and exercise. Like we see it in our friend group. I'm not going to name names, but there's people who like go out really hard for a short period of time, and it's really tough to make like long progressing gains, but you might hit that like very immediate goal doing that kind of thing. But it's so much more valuable to your life as an athlete if you just stack brick by brick, season by season, and you don't have that spring restart because you take it off. Like you take the whole winter off, right?
Yeah, you just kind of keep that bar stagnant, kind of maintaining, and then you keep bringing it up instead of regressing. It's perfect.
And not even stagnant, right? Like you think about everybody who's training for the Ottawa Marathon, for a marathon early spring, everybody who's doing around the Bay. If you're training for that right now, you're making progress. You're not just keeping that bar steady like Tyler and his Ironman training. You're making gains, and you're having these intense sessions like Andrew was talking about earlier in the episode, and that's where those gains are made is in the tough winter months for some people.
Not for all though.
Yeah,
I'm a ghost.
for some, it's pretty nice to just sit there, watch some Netflix with a nice hot cocoa, just strolling through Strava, seeing the miles that Gizmo is racking up while you're sitting on the couch. But I'm telling you, if you get after it during those winter months or the hot summer months, because it applies there too, you'll really see the progress I find just skyrocket, and it just mentally, that next workout just seems easier and easier.
For
Very
sure.
true.
Now, for the winter session, and we're talking about like consistency and endurance, but there's this piece of intensity, right? You're doing a lactate threshold workout in a storm, basically, slipping around. But that intensity is so valuable to your gains. And it's something that I feel like I'm missing out on a little bit with this like 200K a week goal. I'm doing a lot of working out and exercise, but I feel like I'm lacking some of those like structured workouts to really push the upper limit. Do you guys have any tips for people who have maybe developed a good base but don't necessarily have those like key workouts every week?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a lot about lactate threshold. There's also VO2 max. You kind of have those two main sessions. For me and my training, I have marathon pace stuff, lactate threshold, and VO2 max. They're all fun and different and have different challenges. And I think one great thing that you can incorporate is just to cycle through those workouts one per week. You don't want to do too much of that top of the pyramid because that's a quick way to get burnt out. But I think rotating through different types of workouts at different zones and even swapping out, kind of looking at, fits versus Hansen and different kind of philosophies to just kind of see what kind of workouts you enjoy and you like are excited to be tackling.
Yeah, exactly. My rule of thumb for non-structured training program is just try to go out once a week, do a little bit of speed, and hopefully, what I do is I try to piggyback off of a friend's workout. It's even better. You don't have to think. You just say, "Hey, what are you doing this week for your speed?" And you try to line it up. So again, shout out to John, and I just piggyback off of him, and we kind of have a good, decent pacing like kind of strategy together. And thankfully, we're close to the same speed, so it works out.
So I have to ask, I love that you're going out and doing all these workouts with John. I think it's great that he's dragging you out of bed, getting that volume up. But why is it that every single time you guys go out on a workout together, his workout is way longer than yours?
That's a very good question and a good observation. Simple enough is he's training for a marathon and I am not. So he has, that early May marathon, and I'm just a fly by night kind of guy this early spring, and I just have a half marathon, so I could just do whatever I want.
True, you're training for the 30K, the half, so you don't need to do all of those long sessions.
Yeah, I don't go as long, and honestly, I'm so over the cold this winter. I don't know what's gotten into me, but I'm now the weather's breaking. I must say it is getting a little warmer, so you will see a little bit more running out of me. But I'm focusing more on the bike as well. So for other goals this summer instead of that early May slash I guess early May or late May marathon. So you'll see my running volume increase a little bit higher than Gizmo's pretty soon.
I love to hear it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think maybe you just need to get yourself, like, how some people have like a saying that inspires them. I think we need to pull up that year-end wrap of what the goals you need to focus on to really skyrocket that Ironman performance of the double down on running. I think you just need to play that on loop in just let it live rent free in your head.
No, we're not running that tape back. That's a scratch it out for me. We still got what? I'm counting the days here. We still got 160 days left, so the prep's coming. It's a nice and slow simmer. I'm like a pressure cooker. We gotta cook it, or sorry, a crock pot. Got to cook it for long and slow. I'll get to that temperature eventually.
Yeah, and it's good to have goals. I mean, I know myself this winter I set that the big goal of the year, and that's going well. Whereas the daily fitness or like the strength and conditioning stuff is not necessarily going quite as well. I'm supposed to essentially average 2 strength sessions a week, and I'm definitely not doing that right now just because of the January woes. Early, I wasn't doing it, and I've been trying to catch it up a little bit, but I'm still behind by kind of a few, like a handful of sessions, and I'm trying to kind of keep that going. How is your 2025 fitness goal going, Andrew? The support with Ian is going well?
With Ian is going well. I think the winter running challenge has been hitting him a little bit as of lately. He's had a mix of lots of work and like lots of ice and just interesting running conditions, which I think for a beginner runner is just a little daunting.
Or
So
intermediate as well,
yeah,
I must say.
that's true. No, I mean, yeah, no matter what, who you are, where you're at, your ankles are never safe. So be careful out there in that ice.
And he was beating my
Um,
mileage for a while there. So yeah, we are all in
yeah,
the same woes.
yeah, but it is going well. He's still nice, very motivated, and he's entered into the not base building phase. So it's going good.
That's very
As
good.
far as my own fitness, I would say I feel very behind on where like I would have wanted to be. One from just being busy, putting things to the sideline a bit, but also just health. I've been like yo-yoing with sickness, and I'm trying to like balance the how do I, get after it, but also like I don't want to make this worse and like how much time off is the right amount of time. So that's something I'm struggling with a little bit.
Yeah, and it's tough when it's been so prolonged, right? It's you think you're getting better, but that recovery doesn't quite snap into full force where you can up the mileage to where you want to be and be feeling good. So it's definitely, yeah, I can understand that struggle. And you have such big goals this year with some really big events. So hopefully in the next few weeks you have some good news for us and you're back on the friggin' full steam ahead train.
Yeah, I've said it before, so I don't want to jinx it. I'm gonna knock on wood, but I think this week or last week will hopefully, if you check out my Strava, it'll be a nice big up peak, and it's gonna stay at that up peak. But I guess we'll see what the week holds for me.
For back to December mileage, I hear then.
Not quite. I really have tried to. I had to rework my training plan as I like had the first go, then failed attempt, and coming back to it. I've reworked it to try to be like a very like gradual build up to try to do this in like a smart way where I'm not burning myself out.
Very cool. So winter training has been, let's say, mediocre for some respects for all of us, but we've definitely learned a lot this season, I think, so far. So can we go around the room and maybe just highlight one of our favorite kind of learnings that we found this winter?
On vacation, get out of the winter, and you can get some good gains when you're not in the snow. No, I think for me,
I feel like that's a really good one, actually.
actually, I was like,
You're
that kind of works.
No, you're laughing about it, but 100%. I'm so excited to go on vacation, and I think it's going to be that kind of like mental reset that you need to kind of chop at the bit again. Because after a while, the like continuous mileage, just like it's a slog. So it's nice to have that little break and reset.
Yeah, good change of scenery and fires you up a little bit in a different environment. Usually, could get you kick started again and get you feeling all those fun feelings.
Very nice. What about you, Andrew?
So I have two. My first one is for you bearded runners out there. Keep the beard. The beard is a free scarf that doesn't send that condensation up because recently I had a pretty decent beard going, but I got rid of it. And the first run post shave, I was like, whoa, winter running is actually cold. I had a buff on, the fog was hitting my face, and like I was just freezing. So if you have a beard, keep it. It's free
That's
scarf. It's wonderful.
that's a low key hack. I forgot about that. I didn't realize a clean shave will be extra cold.
Yeah, I remember being spooked the last time I clean shaved, and I've had a little bit of scruff ever since. It's nice.
I think before you go to your second one though, the viewers really want to know: do you still shave the legs for the speed?
In the winter, no. The legs, they're covered with tights. I
Extra
do
layer there
agree.
too,
I
right?
do agree. It probably would have helped me in my last workout, but no, those do not get shaved in the winter. Side benefit of the beard too, when there's snowstorms, the icicles, people look at you like you're a freak. It's great.
Oh yeah.
Second one, and this is in the winter and doing hard or long runs specifically in less than ideal conditions, especially for the road runners. I find it's great for just having that different surfaces that you're running on, trudging through the snow. It's super hard work, and I feel like is a great way to become a more resilient runner. So that's one of the reasons I love those winter long runs no matter the conditions. It makes me stronger for that speedy summer season. And
Yep, can agree.
How about you, Brian? What have you been learning this winter?
So, winter training, when you're putting in a lot of miles, and a lot of my weeks right now are like 10 hours plus, and I think the only thing keeping me sane is working out with others. Whether that's hopping on a call with the Boys in Motion squad on Mondays to do a race together, or doing a run on the weekend with people, or just hopping out and doing training runs with the Rascal. It's so nice being able to share this journey with others, especially in the cold winter months, that I think that's something that I hope every endurance athlete has the option to have. I know, Andrew, a lot of your training is solo. It's tough being so fast. Not everybody can keep up. But Ty, you and Papa John, it's nice to see, and I know it's always a good time exercising with other people. So I think that's my biggest learning is just the value in the other people along with you.
100%. I think it goes a long way, especially in those winter conditions that are less than favorable. It's a lot easier to get out there with others than just doing it on your own. And like for example, I'm not an early riser, as you guys know, but a couple weekends ago, John friggin' got me out of bed at 5:30 in the morning and was on my feet before sunrise. So and it felt great, just hanging out with a couple friends, chatting along.
Yeah, for sure. And the other learning is like it's nice to have a spring race. I wish we had a spring cycling race in the calendar for people like Adam, Mark, and Mike that we could be training towards as well. I guess we have the BIM ride. There's a lot of mileage to be eaten there, but it's nice to have something to aim towards as well.
Yeah, I feel like without having something on the calendar, winter training would be so easy to, you know, just have the big dip and slumber through those winter months on your Strava graph.
Oh, 100%. Even without a big race, I feel that, right? So like without that marathon block, I kind of for the past few years I've been doing a marathon block in the winter, and I kind of just it's kind of a memeing a little bit, but I do feel a little lost with half marathon and around the bay. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing about winter. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times, and it's definitely the most frosty of times. Anyways, that's a wrap on the episode. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. If you're out there running through snowstorms or just trying to not freeze off your butt this winter, we salute you.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and don't forget to join our Strava Club so you can watch everyone in the Boys in Motion Strava Club slog along through these winter months, and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you never miss a beat.
And I'm here with your weekly reminder that we are not medical professionals. Everything we share is based on our experiences and fun times we have with the boys, mild obsession with endurance metrics and stats for the nerds, and a little cold days out there training. Always consult with a healthcare provider before making any changes to your training.
Beauty. So share this episode with somebody you love. Hopefully they can benefit from all the winter training that you're doing as well. Thanks for joining us for this episode. Stay cozy out there. Catch you next time.